and then read for questions. I'd turn the meeting over to Billy Lewis. You may begin.
And I have confirmed that the call is now being recorded, so we can mute all lines. For your patience, I just want to make sure that we get this recorded so that colleagues who were not able to join can follow up later. Just a disclaimer, everything that we're going to discuss today has been covered in one of two of the VISTA webinars concerning the VISTA PSO Blend, as well as in documents that were sent out from our office. Today's call is basically to make sure that you all have the clarity that you need about what's going to be happening next week and then going further. That is the purpose of our discussion today. It's for us to kind of go over everything that we've sent you, everything that you've heard from our colleagues, and then, of course, for you to ask and just get clarity on issues, items that you've read and heard. So I'm putting that out. Let's get started. Quick look at the agenda, just a brief overview of the PSO Blend. We're going to look at a little bit of the differences between the classic, which is the traditional PSO model, versus the blend. How you all should be communicating with candidates, the role of the supervisor as well as site supervisors. As we know, we have a few intermediaries in Florida. We'll talk a little bit about the Fingerprint Protocol. Then we'll look at some timelines, discuss the oath submission process, and review some of your next steps. And, of course, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end just to answer and get any live questions. Now, I want you all to feel free to use the chat throughout the call. If you have any questions that come up as I'm talking, my colleagues are monitoring the chat, and hopefully we can get answers to your questions as we go through the call. And if not, of course, we'll review them again at the end during the Q&A session. So what I want to do, hopefully this is something you've seen, but just to give an introduction or a second introduction to what the blend is. It's really something brand new this year for PSO, and it's an alternative to the traditional model, and it's called the PSO Blend. And it is a 5-week interactive experience, so it's completely virtual, and it includes a self-directed online tutorials, some facilitated webinars, there's field work, and then, of course, we try to encompass your own on-site training and orientation to your organization and the community. So candidates are expected to fully participate in all components of the training. So brand new, it's very different, and hopefully that there are some pros that help you all in transitioning your members to your organization and service with your organization. So class blend, how are they different? So with PSO, it's mostly face-to-face. It's a 3.5-day orientation where members are pretty much engaged with almost 100 or over 100 members from the entire region, sometimes from other regions. So very in-person, very in-touch. The difference with the blend is that it's mostly online, with the in-person feeling coming more so from the on-site orientation with you all and with your communities and with your colleagues. Now, so Classic has online prerequisites. Talk about how that differs with PSO Blend. Now, this particular PSO Classic, because we do still have some of our members that are attending a PSO Classic, is going to take place in Dallas, Texas. As you know, that typically takes place in Atlanta, Georgia. But for this particular PSO, it's going to be in Dallas. The Blend, however, takes place at the VISTA Proc site in the community, and in some cases at home for that pre-work or online self-directed work. Training is required with the PSO Classic. As you know, it's usually out of state. With the Blend, there's no training or there is no travel to training required because they are at the site or at home. Classic was typically 3.5 days, Some pre-work assigned. All members were to do their terms, conditions, and benefits modules online before they attend PSO. Now, with the blend, that's spaced out over 5 weeks. And again, there is still some pre-work assigned. There's a little bit more pre-work, though, however, with the PSO Blend. And that pre-work is mandatory and must be completed by a certain deadline. So there's a difference in that sense. PSO Classic, the oath is administered there in person by a CNCS official. With the PSO Blend, the oath is administered during the initial webinar and actually during the breakout session, for which you all will be participating in. So there's a little bit more involvement with you all as far as the oath is concerned in reference to the Blend. PSO Classic, the VISTA's first initial day of service is typically after the PSO Classic ends, the day after. With the PSO Blend, it begins on the very first day. So for those of you who have members who will be attending the February PSO Blend, they will start on Monday the 22nd. So some of the differences between Classic and Blend, obviously there are some advantages and maybe disadvantages to both. And this is a pilot, so we'll be taking a look at that. So it's important. One that we've always stressed, even with Classic, is that you really need to communicate with your candidates, at least on a weekly basis. And what is important is because there is typically so much time from the initial recruitment and selection to the day of PSO, whether it be a Classic or whether it be a Blend. And what we want to do is avoid members from falling through the cracks, because in some cases we know they fall off the face of the earth. So it's important for you all to make sure that you are keeping in communication. It doesn't have to be daily, but our recommendation is at least a weekly email. So one, that member knows that I'm still assigned to serve, I'm still going to get ready to serve, and you know that that member is still getting ready to get on board with your organization. That's very critical because, of course, you don't want to waste your own time. You don't want to waste the members' time, and there are resources involved with this. So definitely stay in communication with your members. Try to answer any questions they may have. And give them information about your organization to review, information about the community if they're relocating. But definitely try to keep those lines of communication open at least weekly. This is more so important now, especially with Blend participants, because there is pre-work required and because there is a deadline for that pre-work, a hard deadline. And fail to meet those deadlines could mean termination, or not termination, but deselection of our members. So you definitely want to make sure that at the very least you are communicating with them to make sure that they've completed all of that pre-work in the portal. One way you can communicate, again, remind candidates to complete all their pre-work. But in addition to that, there are portal forms. Several different forms that we send them an automatically generated email to complete once we place them. But it's definitely a good idea for you all to give them a nudge and make sure that they've completed these forms. So the direct deposit, their tax forms, unpaid compensation forms, life insurance, end-of-service benefits selection. And since we just brought that end-of-service benefits selection, I think it is important to say that make sure your members know that if they choose the stipend in the beginning, when they make the selection, they cannot switch to the award at any point. They cannot, okay? So you make that very clear to them that if they want to choose the cash stipend as an end-of-service benefit, that's what they're comfortable with that option, and they know that that option cannot change. However, if they choose the education award in the beginning, they do have the opportunity to switch in their 10th month of service. I know that some of you all are very seasoned, and I'm probably beating a dead horse, but to this day, we still get members calling us and emailing us regarding this issue, and they didn't understand it in the beginning. So U.S. Supervisors, having most of the contact with them, that's something that I want to convey to you all, that you all should not only convey to your members, but for intermediaries, please convey to your site supervisors. The next that they complete is the terms, conditions, and benefits module. Everyone has to do that. It is required. And typically what happens and what we see more often than not is members coming to PSO not having done the terms, conditions, and benefits module. This is critical because this explains the terms, conditions, and benefits of VISTA. That's something that an individual needs to understand before they propose to dedicate 12 months of their life to service. So that's something we want to make sure that you all, again, convey your candidates to complete. And we talked about the online modules for blend candidates that have a hard deadline. And to complete those modules, community selection. So about what you all should be talking to your candidates about and how often you should be talking to those candidates. The next thing, I know this is something that everybody is definitely concerned about or wants to know more information about, but what the supervisor and site supervisor roles are. Again, and I have to stress this because site supervisors are a third party to the state office. So it's really incumbent upon you, project supervisors, to make sure that your site supervisors are aware of the same information that you're aware of. So as far as pre-work is concerned, you definitely want to make sure that your candidate has the VAD, and that's the correct VAD. Now, no, at a minimum, we have some safeguards here at the agency because all members see the VAD that you've attached to them in eGrants. Hopefully, that is the VAD that you give them in person, or that's the VAD they'll be taking with them to PSO, and that VAD doesn't change. It should not change, but at a minimum, they need to have their VAD. Another important one, and it's more so important now than ever because of the blend pilot, but we want to make sure you have the necessary equipment, so the phone, computer, internet access to internal systems. Some of our grantees are school districts or municipalities, so there's some security clearances that may be required. Think about that as you're looking at your different sites and what clearances might be required there. These might be things that affect you as a site, but they be things that affect your sub-sites. So we want to have a preemptive strike and be very proactive about what's going to be necessary for that VISTA member to get up and running on that first day. Definitely want to review that PSO Blend agenda, not just for our purposes, but because we know that you all take your on-site orientation and training very serious. We also know that you take the work plan very serious, and you have things scheduled and set up. So it's going to be important for you all to take a good look at that agenda to see when things are happening, when your candidates or your members at that point will be required to complete different modules or different self-directed webinars or whatnot, that it's not interfering with what they have to do at the site or with what you have scheduled. It's just a good idea to look at that so you can coordinate things accordingly. The other thing is ensure the candidate is prepared to participate in the Launching Your VISTA Service webinar, and that's the first day of service. There's only 2 live webinars, and that's the first of the 2. So again, we want to make sure that they have everything they need to be prepared and to be ready to participate fully in that first webinar. So intermediaries, I know I'm beating a dead horse, but please make sure you inform your sub-sites that those members need to be ready to be participating and engaged in that webinar on Monday if your candidates are attending the PSO Blend on Monday. Time for the candidate to fully participate in all aspects of PSO Blend. That just goes hand in hand with what I said about reviewing that agenda and making sure that what you have planned and what's on the agenda don't go with each other. The other piece is, and this is new for supervisors, is that we'd like you to attend the last 30 minutes of the Launching Your VISTA Service webinar. Now, this lasts the whole 30 minutes, but this is a time for us to introduce the state office and the state to your members. It's also the time where we do the actual oath and where members can ask different questions that we may not be able to answer. So we do ask that you try to sit in on that piece of the webinar, and that's a completely separate breakout session. So it's very distinct and separate from what we call the plenary, so when you'll need to jump in. So what I want to do is just take a look at what the weeks look like. Again, this is information that we have sent you, and go back to what I said about reviewing the agenda so that you can get an understanding as to what they're required to do for us on our end, what you'll be requiring them to do, and that those things don't interfere with each other. So, as I said before, this was sent, but the 5 weeks looks like. And of course, we on that very first day, that webinar, what you're expected to do is an oath form for each VISTA, which you'll receive from the state office. Collect and submit all oath forms to the CSO via email. Your on-site orientation and training. 2, just continue to implement your on-site orientation and training. Discuss the VAD and develop an understanding of the community and, of course, your organization. Again, further with continuing your OSOT if it's appropriate, if yours lasts that long. If you have any questions, you want to do your part in making sure that you answer those questions or respond to any concerns they've raised. Support. Be a support, be a resource, be a guide, be a coach for your members. And again, one more time for my intermediaries, these are things that you need to convey to your sub-sites. Now the fingerprint protocol is also pretty important because it's very different than what we've done in the past. So kids will no longer be fingerprinted at PSO and are required to be fingerprinted independently, okay? So this is for Blend, this is for training waivers, this is for those who attend a PSO Classic. From now on, all candidates have to obtain their own fingerprints. So all members who have been sworn in will receive a $25 fingerprint subsidy in their first living allowance to offset the cost of fingerprinting. It may cost that much, it may cost more, but as for right now, we will be providing a $25 subsidy. We'll say, because some of you may have gotten this question already, well, I don't have money to do the fingerprints. Members have, and I'm just going to skip down to this, but members have about 5 weeks. That's the drop-dead deadline to get fingerprints done, and we by the 5th Friday of service. I'm going to say this to you as a program officer in Florida. We strongly recommend that you don't wait till that 5th week, that if you have time on that first day or you have time within the first week or two, that you advise your member to go and get those fingerprints done. Definitely want to make sure you get that taken care of because that also has a hard deadline, and failure to meet that deadline will mean a termination from service. Now, another question we might get, or go back to what I was saying about a member not having money. Some options. Because have 5 weeks to get those fingerprints done, they opt to wait for their first living allowance, which contains the fingerprint subsidy, and do it at that time. There are some supervisors who will lend the amount for the fingerprints. We have nothing to do with that. And, of course, we cannot force a member to reimburse you if they borrow money to get their fingerprints done. But I'm just putting that out there as an option. Just from looking at those particular times, you can see there's no reason to wait until that 5th Friday of service. Get that done sooner rather than later. Make time for it. So just back the fingerprints. You all fingerprint kits for members. Each member got a kit. Should be receiving those no later than this Friday. Fingerprint kits include 2 fingerprint cards, instruction for obtaining fingerprint services and completing the cards, a fingerprint submission FAQ, a criminal history questionnaire. And I'll tell you about this criminal history questionnaire, and this is something, again, you want to stress to your member. If they did not disclose a criminal background during application process, this is the last time to disclose that. That form is how they disclose their criminal history not listed on the application. Failure to disclose may result in the member's termination of service, and may is typically more so likely will result in the member's termination of service. So I implore you to convey that to your site supervisors and to your members that if there's anything they forgot to say on the app, that this is the time pretty much expose that or let that be known, because there is no other time after this. Also, in that kit, you're going to find a UPS Next Day Air label so that you can send your completed cards to CNCS HQ. Now, your site, a singular site, which means all your VISTAs are at one site, might be a good idea to just send them all together to go get their fingerprints done, and you can mail one batch to the to CNC headquarters using the label we provided. That may not be an option that some of our intermediary or larger projects have, and that's fine, and that's why we've given you an individual label per each member. But to the extent you can, CNCS asks that you batch fingerprints, meaning that you send as many in one label as possible. But, again, we understand if you cannot. What you'll notice on that label is that a tracking number for benefit. I would definitely make sure to record that tracking number in the event that something is lost and you've sent it and the deadline passes, what have you. So please sure when you get your fingerprints that you either make a copy, scan, take a photo of the label so that you do have the tracking number so that you're able to track your package in case it's lost. About the fingerprint protocol, I know this is very new, it's very different, but I don't think it's anything that's going to be that difficult, especially if we're all proactive about it. Submission, this is very simple. For those of you who ever had a training waiver, you already know how to do this. So once that breakout session is done, and this is another reason why we want you to participate in that last 30-minute session, everyone should have a note that's been printed for them by you. They need to sign and date accordingly. On the bottom of that oath, you'll notice a gray shaded area. I know it says for official use only, but there have been times where we've gotten these oaths and the bottom has been signed by the supervisor or the member. Do not sign or write in this area. This area is for the state office to sign. So once you complete your oath, or the member signs their oath, signs and dates their oath, you'll need to scan and email that to the state office that day. It will not be activated until we receive a signed oath. So the webinar is over, the breakout session is over, everyone's done their oath, they've signed, you send, you email to the state office on Monday, by COB Monday, okay? Failure to do so means we cannot activate your members. So this is what everybody's also interested in. So here is a handy-dandy chart that kind of shows you or gives you a visual of what happens when. We talk about pre-work. Many of you know who have candidates who are starting the blend on Monday. The deadline for pre-work was yesterday. Maybe some of you who have candidates that have pre-work outstanding. They must complete that today. If they do complete it today, they may be deselected. I'm sure you reach out to your candidates if they're attending the PSO Blend on Monday. So I'm not going to go through all of the dates here because this agenda, again, has been sent out to you all, and I'm going to be sending a copy of this PowerPoint so you'll have this visual. But it goes to show you the three different groups that are going on right now. As you know, we have the PSO Blend that starts Monday. We have PSO Classic, that's our traditional in-person, that starts on March 1st through the 4th in Dallas. And then we have another PSO Blend that's going to be next month in March. Now, I put these dates on there as a general guide, but as I've been told by my colleagues at VISTA, that these dates are subject to change. For the most part, they give you at least an outline of what's to come, so that will help you in your planning purposes. Next step. So again, communicate with members to ensure pre-work and forms have been completed. Applicable, speak with your site supervisors regarding their roles and technology requirements. This is a must. Send fingerprint kits to site supervisors with instructions. The members have to have those fingerprints on Monday if they're starting the blend on Monday, okay? So they will need those fingerprints no later than their first day of service. Those of you who have Classic, they will need those fingerprints when they report to your site on that first day, and so forth with the March blend. That very first day, your members need their fingerprint kits. They have to have them that day. You want to prepare for your members' arrival. One way you need to do that, and you need to inform your site supervisors to do that, is to test the technology. You want to make sure that the computer you're using, the browser you're using, and whatnot support WebEx platform. The way you can do that, there's a link in this PowerPoint that I'm going to forward, but there's also a link in the guidance that's been sent out. Attend the breakout session for PSO Blend candidates. That's on Monday, 2/22, for our PSO Blend folks. Again, that's the time we'll be administering the oath. Once that is administered, we ask that you collect those signed oaths and mail them to florida@cns.gov. Okay. So that's what this next week is going to look like. And hopefully you all have more than enough information so that you can have a successful first week. And then, of course, folks who have individuals attending Classic, hopefully have everything you need so that you can have a successful first week. So that's it for now. So this time, if anyone has any questions, and I'm just going to double check the chat to see if I saw or missed anything. The operator to go ahead and open lines.
Lines are open and interactive for questions at this time.
Has a good question. What if a member cannot find a facility that charges $25 or less? Can they request more reimbursement to offset the shortage? Unfortunately, at this time, no. The fingerprint subsidy is $25 max.
Yeah.
Now, that may or may not change in the future, but as of right now, it is a max of $25. Now, you as a sponsor or your sub-sites propose to provide the additional balance that's required for the fingerprints if you have that in your budget to do so. So that, again, is another way that you all can support your members if those fingerprints are over $25. And again, as I stated, if there's a financial hardship, they may opt to wait for their first living allowance. That should come in about the calendar that we sent out to you all, so you can see that. But that will come within enough time to avoid that last-minute 5-week deadline. But the subsidy is what it is right now, and that's $25. And lines are open, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to jump in there. If you're not comfortable, you can send it to me privately on the chat, and I can ask for you in the general setting.
Okay.
I'll put that out there. Does everyone feel prepared to receive their members on Monday? Yes. Do you feel more comfortable with the information that's been given to date?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's great. Like I said, I know a lot of what we talked about may have been redundant, but it was important for us to make sure that you all had clarity. So now that it seems that everyone has clarity, I think I'm going to expect a great first week of Blend and then a great first week after the Classic. So unless there are no more questions, okay. We got another question.
Good morning, everyone. I just had a quick question. You wanted us to attend the blends with VISTA. How would you suggest I do that if I have VISTA at 10 different sites?
You located.
Right.
Okay. So this initial webinar, supervisors and site supervisors will not be attending the entire. Well, I do want to make that part clear. The portion of the webinar that we ask supervisors to be involved in is the breakout session. Now, I'm assuming that even though there are VISTA members at 10 different sites, there's somebody that they report to on a day-to-day basis at that site with them. So I have some background noise. But whoever that day-to-day person is that VISTA member reports to, then that's the individual sit in on that session. And that's just to make sure, again, that, they complete the oath, they ask any site-specific questions, that individual is there to answer that. Really, the main important piece is that somebody's there to receive that oath.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help? Okay. And I got another question in the chat. Someone asked, they want to be clear that they'll get the fingerprint kit by Monday, and each member is responsible to send it. So you actually get the fingerprints by Friday. In our office, we sent out all fingerprint kits yesterday. Those kits should either already be at your site today or on their way today, but no later than tomorrow. Everyone should have a kit for each member. Okay? And yes, technically each member is responsible to send it unless you as a supervisor are doing a batch mailing and collecting cards and sending them in one envelope. But although the onus is on the member to make sure that they get these fingerprints taken care of and that the fingerprints are sent, if you get them sent and they're terminated, whose of time are we really talking about? So think about how that impacts your project and what role you might want to play to make sure that this step is taken care of. Are there any other questions? Again, you can ask me privately through the chat if you don't feel comfortable asking in the general setting. Oh, check the chat. I'm going to scroll down to make sure. Let me see. I have no other questions on the chat. And if there are any questions on the phone, I will conclude the call. And this is not the end of questions. We are here, so if there's anything that didn't sound clear or if there's anything you need clarification on, please feel free to reach out to your program officer if you don't have your fingerprint kits today or tomorrow. Please definitely call our office. As a matter of fact, I would tell you to follow up by the end of today. If you don't receive a fingerprint kit, please call your program officer so we can make sure you get one by tomorrow so that you have it by Monday and your sub-site supervisors have it. And with that being said, I will go ahead and conclude today's call. Thank you again.
Thank you once again. This does conclude today's conference. You may disconnect at this time.